Humans have always had a deep fascination with death. It's a natural curiosity. What happens on the other side of the curtain? Throughout history, death itself has had countless depictions. From the classical Grim Reaper to La Santa Muerte, the Greeks were no different. Ancient Greeks had a specific deity who was the personification of death itself. This is the story. In Greek mythology, there are two deities often associated with death, Hades and Thanatos. While Hades rules the underworld and deals with death, it is actually Thanatos who personifies death itself. If you would like to know more about the god Hades, however, I did make a dedicated video about him, link below. Thanatos is one of the primordial beings, amongst the first generation of gods to exist. His mother is Nyx, and his father is Erebus, both representing night and darkness. Unlike many primordial beings, Thanatos takes physical form and is often depicted in early Greek artwork as a man wearing a dark cloak with wings, sometimes holding a scythe. This figure bears resemblance to the Grim Reaper and is often associated with a dark, fallen angel. Despite not playing a major role in Greek mythology, Thanatos represents the concept of death and is an important figure in understanding the mythology surrounding this theme. These characters often get a bad reputation, but Thanatos and most death deities are not truly wicked. Thanatos, for instance, is recognized for his peaceful approach to handling death. He exudes a gentle demeanor, much like his brother Hypnos, who oversees the dominions of sleep. However, Thanatos' sisters, the Furies, are quite the opposite, embodying violence and sickness, which can be pretty terrifying. Thanatos also has some intense siblings like Ares, the god of conflict, Nemesis, who ensures payback, Eris, who enjoys trickery, and Charon, the ferryman of the souls in the underworld. In Greek mythology, Thanatos was known for executing his duty impartially, much like Hades. Once your time was up, there were no negotiations or exceptions. But what made Thanatos unique was his approach. Though firm in his duty, he was not cruel. His method of bringing death was swift and painless. Despite death being an inevitable fate, there were a few cunning individuals who managed to evade Thanatos for a time, in essence cheating death. One such figure was King Sisyphus, renowned for his craftiness. However, his actions angered the gods, particularly Zeus, who deemed it time for Sisyphus to face judgment in the underworld. Zeus dispatched Thanatos to apprehend Sisyphus and escort him below. Yet, upon his arrival, Sisyphus employed a clever tactic. Pretending curiosity, he persuaded Thanatos to demonstrate the use of the chains meant for him. Thanatos, showing mercy, complied. But in a sudden turn of events, Sisyphus seized the opportunity to ensnare Thanatos instead. With Thanatos immobilized, death vanished from the earth, posing a significant problem, especially for certain deities like Ares, the god of war. What's the use of fighting if nobody can meet their end? Ares wasn't about to stand for it. He descended to the underworld, liberated Thanatos, and ensured Sisyphus faced the consequences of his deceit. In some versions, Hades was sent to chain Sisyphus and was chained himself. As long as Hades was trapped, nobody could die. Consequently, sacrifices could not be made to the gods, and those that were old and sick were suffering. The gods finally threatened to make life so miserable for Sisyphus that he would wish he were dead. He then had no choice but to release Hades. Before his demise, Sisyphus instructed his wife to toss his unclothed body into the heart of the public square as a measure of her devotion to him. This peculiar request led to Sisyphus ending up on the banks of the river Styx upon arrival in the underworld. Expressing his discontent to Persephone, Sisyphus argued that this act demonstrated his wife's lack of respect for him. Persuaded by his words, Persephone granted him permission to return to the world above. Upon his return, Sisyphus, in spirit form, reprimanded his wife for failing to provide him with a proper burial, as any caring spouse should. Despite his wife's pleas, Sisyphus adamantly refused to go back to the underworld. Consequently, Hermes was dispatched to forcibly escort him back to the realm of the dead. This whole ordeal highlights that Thanatos was not inherently malevolent. He even displayed a vulnerability by allowing Sisyphus to deceive him. One might interpret this as Thanatos being either genuinely compassionate or a bit gullible. Another connection that can be made to the god is with the hero Heracles. Heracles was tasked with escorting Princess Alcesta to the underworld, a mission he wasn't too keen on performing. This disagreement escalated into a confrontation with Thanatos, eventually driving the god of death away. The god also played a minor role during the infamous Trojan War, but before we get into that, a little backstory about this conflict. During the wedding of Pallas and Thetis, Eris, the goddess of strife, felt insulted for not receiving an invitation. In her fury, she hurled a golden apple into the festivities, inscribed with the words, "For the fairest." This sparked rivalry among the goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Paris, the prince of Troy, was chosen to make the final judgment, with each goddess attempting to sway his judgment with bribes. Ultimately, Aphrodite offering Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, already married to Menelaus, king of Sparta, won the contest. Paris' abduction of Helen sparked outrage among the Greeks, especially Menelaus. Led by Menelaus and his brother Agamemnon, the Greeks assembled a formidable army, which included renowned warriors like Achilles and Odysseus, and set sail for Troy. This wasn't just a minor skirmish, it was a full-blown conflict that endured for a decade. The Greeks employed various tactics, from direct assaults to cunning strategies, but Troy proved to be a resilient foe. Amidst the chaos of the Trojan War, Thanatos received instructions to retrieve the fallen demigod Sarpedon. Zeus, the father of Sarpedon, desired for his son's remains to be transported back to his homeland, Lycia. Sarpedon, an ally to the Trojans, fought valiantly until the war's final year. He then met his end at the hands of Patroclus. Zeus, mourning his son's death, could not bear the thought of his body lying unattended on the battlefield. Thus, he instructed Apollo to retrieve Sarpedon's remains. Once Apollo had fulfilled this task, Thanatos and Hypnos would transport the body to Lycia for a proper hero's burial. Thanatos willingly accepted this duty, not solely out of obedience to Zeus, but because honoring the dead was his sacred responsibility. In later times, the journey from life to death and into the Elysian fields became increasingly viewed as the ultimate paradise. This shift brought about a transformation in Thanatos' portrayal. He was now depicted as a remarkably beautiful god, akin to Eros, another winged deities from Greek mythology. During this era, various depictions of Thanatos emerged. Some portrayed him as an infant peacefully cradled in the arms of his mother. One could say that Thanatos and similar deities have their efforts often go unnoticed, and when they do catch people's attention, they're condemned rather than acknowledged. Thanatos was renowned for his gentle approach, and his presence was almost comforting, unlike some of his more fearsome siblings. The form of death he brought was swift and painless, offering a peaceful transition for the departed. Thanatos is a god often compared to Hades, who is frequently misinterpreted as the Christian devil, leading to misconceptions of evil. There is no real glamour in the duties Thanatos and other deities associated with death undertake, but their role is pivotal in the cycle of life. So what do you think of this deity? Do you regard him as evil or as a simple messenger that your time in this good earth has expired and it is time to move on to the next chapter? Let me know down in the comments. If you made it this far into the video, I will assume that you like what you saw. So please like, comment, subscribe, share. It's a small button for you and a gigantic leap for my channel. Until the next tale, farewell, and may the gods smile upon you.